Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Alex Guzman. I am the payroll trainer manager here at Central Payroll. This is our quarterly meeting presented by us here at Central Payroll, as well as the Share HCM team. Um, to start off, we're going to be going with the Share team, and they'll be kicking this off. And I believe I'll hand it off to Audrey Liddy.
Right. Good morning, everyone. Thanks, Alex. So we survived another fiscal year, and this one was particularly busy. So we don't have a lot for you, but we do have three topics: help desk tickets, longevity pay changes, and then additional approvers cleanup. Next slide, please. All right, so Dwayne's not here to give us the stats because he's helping with all the MFA tickets, but these are the HCM help desk tickets. These are the stats. We've had 718 in a 2-month period. So I know with all of the fiscal year transition, we had a lot going on, especially with the SPO architecture. Every single classified employee, their position was touched and their job record was touched. So there was a lot to manage and maintain. So some of these corrections are due to that. But these are normal numbers for us as well. And so I just wanted to make you aware of the amount of work that our team, especially Dwayne, puts into the help desk and ask for your help in trying to lower these numbers some. So as you can see, we have 178 effective date corrections, 21 orphan records, um, a lot of corrections there. If you look down the list, I'm not going to go through every single one of them. Obviously, some of these are legitimate, some of them cannot be helped, but what we're asking is that when you are doing entry, please check that effective date. That is, like I said, the majority of our tickets. You know, in most places in the system, when you add a row, the effective date is going to default to today. And oftentimes that's not what the effective date should be. So, just make a mental note as you're going through data entries to check that effective date. And hopefully it's correct and that will help cut down on the number of errors that we have. Next slide, please. All right, so we understand that mistakes are going to happen, and sometimes there's just system issues or there's a row out there that gets entered in, and we need to delete that so that you can go and enter a previous dated row. That's understandable. But most important of all is please triple check the social security number. We had two employees just last month with the incorrect social security number, and it added a second employee ID for each of those employees. And unfortunately, that was done by the same person.
Sorry, Audrey, can you unmute yourself? I apologize. That was my fault.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. So yeah, unfortunately, both of those were done by the same person. We did have a discussion with that agency. But it's so important that that social security number is correct and matches what is on the social security card. If it's incorrect, that creates a lot of cleanup for our team, for central payroll. It's not a road that we like to go down. And the other thing is direct deposits. So, that's super important for the employee. You want them to get paid correctly and on time. So just double checking that that number, both the routing number and the account number are correct before you save those in the system. Also, when you do have to submit a ticket, please give us all the relevant information. A lot of times we're just given a name of an employee, and in some cases, we can track them down easily, but in other cases, we see everyone in the system. So we don't just see your 100 or 150 employees, we see everyone. So, if you give us a John Martinez, well, there's probably 50 of them in the system. So we have to sort through which one is it? And so all the relevant information, who, what, when, where, why, how, The more information you can give us on a ticket, the easier it is for us to troubleshoot. And the less amount of time we have to spend, figuring out what the employee is or what the actual situation or issue is. And then finally, um, we do, I wouldn't say frequently, but we do get tickets directly from employees sometimes. Um, Someone who's has no HR experience, and a lot of times these tickets can be resolved by the HR person and shouldn't be coming to our team. So please remind your staff that if they have an issue in HCM, come to you first as HR. If you cannot troubleshoot it, then please submit a ticket on their behalf. It should be coming from HR. And really, I don't think there's very many situations in which it should be coming from the employee themselves. So that's all I have. Any questions on any of that?
Audrey, just real quick for everyone, there was an issue with some of the folks being able to log in. So there were a couple that missed the beginning. We are recording this, so if you missed the first couple of minutes, it will be posted on the DFA website. You can come back later and watch the recording. And I apologize. I don't know why Zoom limited that today, but it's fixed now. So thank you.
Okay, and the most important things are on this slide right here. So if you see this slide, then you haven't really missed a whole lot for me. All right, and I will turn it over to Mikkel. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Audrey. Good morning, everyone. So my presentation today will be short and sweet. I'm just going to talk through a couple of changes to longevity pay. So the first, most exciting, is the amounts for longevity pay are going to be increasing. So that's taking effect for a pay period ending September 12th. So if you're in that 5 to 10 year range, you're going to go from $15.39 a pay period to $29.67 a pay period, up to that $700 annual amount. So these biweekly rates are calculated for the remaining 21 pay periods, just to get employees up to that new threshold, that new annual amount. All right, let's see. The second change that's going to be made to longevity for the same pay period is a fix to the longevity TRC. So you may have noticed if you making any adjustments to a prior period's timesheet and changing something other than the longevity TRC, that the longevity TRC went into a needs approval status. So for that pay period ending September 12th and onward, that'll be fixed. So longevity will stay approved, even if you are modifying something unrelated. Let's see. Oh, sorry. One thing I did forget to mention. So these new rates are going to be for all employees moving forward. So if an employee did miss a longevity payment, so if they were suspended or in a leave without pay status, what we'll do is on the last pay period of the fiscal year, we'll work with central payroll to bring them up to that total amount. And I guess to segue, if there was an employee that was missed because they were in one of those situations, please submit a help desk ticket or contact central payroll. Please don't modify any of the TRCs or insert the longevity TRC yourself. We just want to avoid any overpayments. So I guess please, submit a help desk ticket or contact central payroll. And as always, there's that query NMS PY longevity payments. So you can run that for a range to see how much longevity an employee has received thus far, if you're interested in tracking that information. I guess I'll pause here. Are there any questions? Let's see, come through the chat.
Mikkel, I just want to add
Yep.
that you mentioned that starting that pay period that ends September 12th, if they make a change to the timesheet, It will not require reapproval of the longevity pay, but it will still require that if you go back to a prior pay period. So I did want to clarify that.
Right. And yeah, if we encounter that situation, please just let either us or Central Payroll know. Okay. Yeah, like I said, short and sweet. I'll turn it over to Jim now, unless there are any questions on any of this, which doesn't seem to be. So thank you, everyone. Have a good weekend.
All right. Good morning, everyone. If you can go to the next slide. I have two things to cover today. One is we want to go over the approval process, talking about additional approvers in particular. And then the second thing I'll go over at the end is an opportunity for some of you who've been asking about it to restrict access on the timesheet, restrict access for managers to be only managers who the employee reports to or other designated managers. So I'll get into that in the last slide. So, and you'll also see why we're covering additional approver cleanup when we get to the last slide, because that helps with the last move if you're interested in moving to that timesheet access. So we want to talk about approvals, and there are three ways that someone can get access to approve time on the timesheet. So the first level is a agency-wide approval level, and that means exactly what it says, and that is a person who has access to approved time. If they're given the role of an agency-wide approver, then they can access and approve time for anyone in the agency. That's pretty straightforward. And I also want to mention here, we'll say it a couple times probably, is that if you're an agency-wide approver, you should not also be an additional approver on the additional approver page, but I'll get into that in a few minutes. The next way is the default or the delivered way of approving, and that's the reports to. So if a manager in a position is listed as the reports to for an employee, then they're basically the supervisor or the manager, and that means that they can automatically, by default, approve that employee's time, again, if they have the manager time approval role. So in this instance, just like with the agency-wide approval, a reports to manager should never be listed as an additional approver. So basically those two types of approval, if they're listed on an additional approver page, that's redundant and unnecessary. And actually, it adds overhead to the system when you do this. Then the last thing is the additional approver setup, and that's where you set up by employee a position or a manager who has access to approve that employee. So those are the three levels of approval. And I'll just make a side note here that we do have a customization for DPS. So if anybody from DPS is on this call, this does apply to you as a framework for the basic approval levels at DPS, but you have also the dotted line approvals set up, and that overrides this approval. So when it comes to cleanup at DPS, it probably would be good to have a separate conversation with you because there are some little nuances towards in the setup for additional approvers and agency-wide approvals. Okay, next slide. So just as a reminder, and some of you may not know all three ways of getting to the additional approver data. The one that you probably are most familiar with is by going through job data and in the employment page, employment data page, clicking on time reporter data, and then when you're in time reporter data, click on Time Approvers. The next way is when you go to Maintain Time Reporter Data, again, clicking on Time Approvers. Basically, it's the same page, just a different way of getting to Maintain Time Reporter Data. And then the third way is going directly to approvers, and that's through the navigator under Time and Labor, Enroll, Time Reporters, and then click on NMS Time Approvers. Okay, next slide. So there are two queries that would be helpful probably, I think, in getting the additional approver data cleaned up. You need to run these two queries and take a look at how your employees are set up. So in the first one, it's the agency-wide approver listing. And you should run this periodically just to make sure that the data is accurate. You can see in this report that in this example, the last effective date for the agency-wide approver, at least in this example, for DFA was from an effective date of August 5th of 2022. I don't know if that's the way it exists today in production, but this is just an example. And it shows you that there are 5 people with their positions and who they are who have agency-wide approval authority. And then the next thing that you can run is our standard NMS TL ADL approver query. And this lists all active employees with their reports to, and then anybody who's an additional approver. We've added a field at the end of the query to show what the position is of the person that is the reports to for that employee. So that should help you in identifying, rows of data on the additional approver screen that is not necessary. So next slide. So here's an example of an additional approver page that we made up. And this is very simple. As there are some agencies out there, I can tell you, who have 20 and 30 rows of data of additional approvers assigned. And I think what's happening is people are going to the page to add additional approvers, and they're just adding, they're not removing invalid or inactive positions for positions that shouldn't be listed. So in the first case, on the first line, we show that Georgia Peach is a agency-wide approver, so we can remove that one. And then the second approver is the same as the reports to. So Will Darcy is the manager of Jane Austen. So what you should do here is you should insert an effective dated row, and we would suggest that the effective date should be the beginning of the next pay period. So in this case, if we made this change today, we would make the date tomorrow, the 30th of August. And then we would remove the 2 lines, and essentially you would save the record with the additional approvers section being totally blank. So that's an example of a cleanup. Okay, next slide. So where does this get us? Well, like I said earlier, the system will, well, I didn't explain exactly what this does to the system. What happens is for every row of an additional approver, whether they're active or not, or the position is filled or not, the system will create a workflow table entry every time the employee submits time or changes their time. So what's happening is hundreds of thousands or even millions of rows of data are being accumulated over time because of a lot of this bad, unnecessary data. For the timesheet access, we're offering a customization. Right now we have 4 agencies who are using this customization, And we have another agency who we're talking to roll this out to. Basically, what we have today is you may or may not know this, but any person who's a manager or supervisor um, who has manager the manager role access, they can actually see all the timesheets of every employee in your agency, whether they're terminated or retired or active. They can also enter and update any time on any timesheet within your agency. What they can't do, though, is they can't approve that time that they may have entered. They can only obviously approve time um, who there's the supervisor for, or they're the additional approver. Um, so what we're offering is we have a custom timesheet access um, process, which will restrict managers' access to be only available to employees who report to them or who they're listed as an additional approver. So this would be one reason why it would be very important for you to clean up the additional approvers, because if you move to this access, you would want to be able to make the access as accurate as possible. With this restriction, managers can only see and approve time for people who report to them, or they're listed as an additional approver. So if your agency is interested in this kind of custom timesheet access restriction, just send us an email and we'll see what we can do to help you get put this into production. We are working with one other agency right now, so we'll have a total of 5 agencies pretty soon with this timesheet restriction.
Jim, I just would like to add that we are currently working with our developers to fix a couple small bugs in this. And so we
Yes.
are putting this on hold. I mean, we're offering it, but so we want you to be aware so that you can perform the cleanup necessary in order to transition to this if that's what your agency would like to do. But until we get those bugs fixed, we're not adding any new agencies, but we can put you on the list to add as soon as those are corrected.
Right, right. And the one agency I was talking about, we're working on cleaning up their additional approvers right now so that when we do have these fixes in place, we'll be able to roll this out right away to them. I saw a question, um, is that a case-by-case basis or would it be an agency-wide restriction? So I'm guessing you mean the timesheet access is a case-by-case so if we put this into place for your agency, what that would mean is that a manager could only see timesheets for people who report to them or who they're listed as an additional approver. If you have a manager or a user who is a agency-wide approver, then they would be able to see all the timesheets and approve all the timesheets. So what this does is it takes away the current access, which is any manager can see and enter time for anybody in the agency. This takes that away, and it restricts it to only people who report to them or they're an additional approver. And yes, you could submit a help desk ticket if you're interested in Donna, yes, if you're interested in going to this, just submit a help desk ticket and we'll start working with you on that. How do we identify or assign a position for agency-wide approval? Oh, well, what you would need to do is open help desk ticket. And I believe, Audrey, is it not true that they need to have a security form submitted for that, for agency-wide approval authority?
No, that's not part of the security
Oh, it's
form,
not?
but
Okay.
yeah, so that would have to be something that comes from HR, and it would have to be someone who, for some reason needs to have agency-wide approval access. So someone who is a timekeeper who also needs to be able to approve. I mean, generally we try to restrict that to HR, but we know that some agencies have needs outside of just having HR have that the agency-wide access. But for right now, that's not a part of the security form.
Right, and you probably want to limit it and keep it to a small number of people. Just a suggestion. Someone submitted a question, if we have an existing customization, will it be overwritten? I don't know what that means. Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know what that means.
I think if they
Okay,
have any timesheet, like they have maybe a certain timesheet at their agency, that's different from other agencies, which we don't really have. I mean, we do have some agencies that do combo code on the timesheet, or like DOT has some special stuff, but that's not going to affect
no, the
this process.
the timesheet access and the timesheet approval is standard across the state except for DPS, although uh, basically the foundation of this it does apply to DPS. They just have another additional layer of dotted line or dotted line approvals. So, okay, no more questions. And that does it for me.
All right, thank you very much. I believe that was it for the share team. Next, we'll have central payroll, and I believe Audrey Beck, are you on?
I am on. Thank you.
Awesome.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. Thank you everybody for attending today. I apologize for the issues we were having earlier. I hope everybody was able to get in. It is being recorded, so we will get it posted to you, and anybody that missed the first few moments will be able to review that if they need the information. The first thing I want to remind everybody is that the Direct Deposit 101 ELM course is live on ELM, and it is a required course. Anyone who has not submitted their certificate of completion from the course that has direct deposit access currently will have that access removed if we do not receive that certificate by Monday. When I updated the slide on Monday, we had 36 agencies with 51 employees that had not completed it. As of 8 a.m. this morning, we still have 28 agencies that have people. There are 36 people with direct deposit access that have not completed it. So we've almost cut in half the number of employees we had outstanding on Monday. We do still have currently 36. I will try to send out emails to the agencies that still have people that need to complete this today, so that they will not be in shock on Tuesday when they come in and no longer have this access because they failed to complete the course. If you're having trouble logging into the course or logging into FSS, please reach out to Alex or Claudette, our training team, for assistance with that. We've given you a little over 45 days to get this done since our first notification. So we really are expecting it to be completed by Monday. On Tuesday, we will begin removing access. So any questions on that?
Looks like we have a couple questions. Are agencies limited to 5 total users, or can we request additional users to be added the role of direct deposit?
Actually, agencies are limited based upon their FTE. So The number of people that we allow to have access to direct deposit for each agency is distinct based upon the FTE of that agency. Most agencies have 3 or fewer that they're allowed to have, and we will not exceed that limit. There are some agencies that when that rule went into place had exceeded the amount that we deemed acceptable. And so we allowed them to maintain those employees' access as long as those employees were in that role. If their access is removed because of their non-completion of the direct deposit 101, you will be held to the number of users that you're allowed based upon your FTE. So it is staggered. The more employees you have, the more people you have that are allowed to have access to it. But there is a limit unless we have granted an exception, basically grandfathered in the exception. And once they lose that access, you have to be below that total users to have new people added. So it's not a 5 total users per agency. Some agencies are not allowed to have that many. And no, you cannot request additional users above that. The direct deposit access is a very secure access. And we have worked really hard over probably the last 3 years to ensure that the people that have access to it are the ones that are supposed to have access, and to limit that access to what we feel the needs of the businesses are. So we can discuss it before, but for the most part, we're holding people to those caps. And to submit the certificate of completion, you will need to go into the FSS and use either the one-off submission or the direct deposit submission. A lot of people have been sending us their confidentiality agreement with it as well. If you already have access, you do not need to resend the confidentiality agreement. We already have that on file for you, but we're not going to reject it if you submit the confidentiality agreement with the certificate and you already have access. We're just going to mark you as in compliance and move forward. I'm sorry, I'm trying to read the comments as we go. So Davila says that they've had issues with Share not loading the training. I don't know if that has been fixed. Alex, do you have any information on that?
So I'm assuming because I'm not gonna blame it on MFA, but I think it might have something to do with the MFA update, because I noticed that issue was happening in our testing environment. But for the most part, the people I've spoken with that were having issue when they refresh their page, it'll reload and do a hard refresh to Control Shift R, and it'll reload that page. What I've been seeing is when people try to load, and it's not just the direct deposit, pretty much any ELM course, it'll come up blank, and but doing that Control Shift R, I've seen will reload it and clear it out. If for some reason that doesn't work and it's still not loading, you may need to open a ticket for it.
Okay. And there was a comment that it says it helps to try a different web browser. Our employees were having difficulties with other trainings, Explorer versus Chrome. So you might want to try another web browser and see if that resolves the issue as well. If none of those help, then I would definitely reach out to Do It to see if they can help you with that. Unfortunately,
Audrey, I also want to mention clearing cache. So please try clearing your browser cache as well, because there are definitely cache issues with MFA. Or maybe not issues, but you're having to clear your cache a little bit more frequently.
thank you,
So,
Audrey.
Audrey Beck, this is Alex Canet. I believe somebody did report that issue. We are looking into it. Yes, to Audrey's point, I want to, Just want to clarify, there are no issues with MFA cache. It's folks that have not cleared cache in a long time, and we're seeing a lot of that. So please clear your browser cache and then try it one more time if you run into an issue like this one. But thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Next slide, please. So I wanted to go over the payroll taxes on state employees because what we are seeing is a lot of agencies are reaching out to central payroll regarding non-resident aliens, F1 visas, and we are also having government agencies reach out to central payroll. So I wanted to go over just some basic information to make sure that everybody is aware of the three different types of employees that we deal with and how they're subject to the different taxations that we have. Some of the questions we get are, we tried to put in the social security number and the system wouldn't take it. And that is because they did not have an authorization to work. It was a social security number that was assigned to them because they are eligible for some type of benefits, or it's some sort of tracking that the federal government is doing on this particular employee. So they did assign them a social security number, but that did not authorize them to work. And when Social Security assigned that number, they used a number that pay systems have identified as non allowable social security numbers, so our system will not take it. We've also had agencies reach out saying that these employees wish to be exempt from all tax withholdings, and that's not allowed either. And while we're here, one thing I do want to mention that was brought to our attention yesterday is self-service W-4s will not be accepted online. So they can complete the self-service W-4 online, but they will need to submit it to the HR agency. The system is not allowing it to be processed automatically from the employee submission. So just a couple of things to keep in mind, but I do want to go over these three categories. So the first category is, of course, a U.S. citizen. We're all very familiar with how to handle those. They are required to complete a W-4, which indicates what their tax withholdings will be. They are subject to Social Security and Medicare. The only exceptions to that is there are some state employees that have para arrangements where they are not subject to Social Security withholding. We know who those are. The agencies that work with them have them identified. But if you get a request from Central Payroll that you have a classified employee that is showing exempt for Social Security and you need to correct that, you need to make that correction, because if you've marked them as exempt, the system will not be withholding Social Security on their wages, and we are required to withhold it. So please do not ignore those emails. When payroll sends you those emails, it is imperative that you make that correction immediately, because the only time you will get that email is when we are running payroll. And in order for payroll to complete correctly, we have to have that status changed. So please be sure that you make sure that if they are a U.S. citizen, unless they are in a specific category due to pair arrangements, they are not exempted from Social Security. And then, of course, they are subject to state withholding if they are residents of the state of New Mexico. There are some non-residents of New Mexico who actually don't work in New Mexico that we have payment agreements with because they're doing work on our behalf, and say, for instance, in Washington, D.C., with the federal government. So those people are actually exempt from New Mexico state withholding, but 99.9% of the state employees are not exempt from New Mexico state withholding, and they will be required to have that withheld as well. The second category of employees that we have are our resident aliens, and those employees will present a green card. And there's a picture here of what a green card looks like, and it is actually green. These people are permanent residents of the United States, and they do have the authorization to work. They are taxed based upon the same rules and regulations as a U.S. citizen, with the only exception is there may be a tax treaty that is in place that would preemptively exclude any non-U.S. earned income, which we don't have to worry about because we are only dealing with wages that are earned. These employees must provide a social security number and a valid green card. You will notice that the green cards have an expiration date on them. They must submit a new green card if the one on file has expired in order for them to continue to work for the state of New Mexico. We cannot have an employee who has an expired green card because that means they are not authorized to work in the United States. Next slide, please. Okay, the next category are our non-resident aliens. And these are the ones that we get the most questions and calls on. These are a lot of your F1 visa holders, your student employees that we are hiring and have the authority to work in the US based upon their student status. They must also present the employment authorization, and you'll notice that the non-resident alien employment authorization is pink. So it's a different color. It stands out. It's very easy to distinguish between a resident alien and a non-resident alien. Non-resident aliens have very specific requirements. For instance, they are subject to a graduated federal withholding on wages, and there's an additional base that gets added to their wages. They can have their wages, their taxes adjusted to match the tax treaties that are in place. But in order to do so, they must submit a valid Form 8233 in order for us to adjust to the tax treaties. On their W-4, they must actually indicate at the top of their W-4 either an NRA or actually write out non-resident alien on the top of their W-4 when they submit it. They cannot file exempt. They cannot file married. They cannot file head of household. And they are not allowed to have any type of dependent credits or other reductions to their taxes. They can only claim single, or if it's married, filing separate, which withholds at the same as a single rate. They are subject to Medicare and Social Security unless they meet the requirements for exemptions. The requirements for exemption on an F1 visa is that it must be closely related to the reason for which they were allowed into the United States. The reason they were allowed into the United States is because they were a student. So unless we are hiring them as an intern, they are not being hired in a manner that is closely related to why they were allowed into the US and are subject to Medicare and Social Security withholding. This is the biggest issue that we have with the non-resident aliens. A lot of them are requesting to be exempted from Medicare and Social Security based upon their F1 status, but they do not meet the qualifications because they were not hired as interns. And the Social Security Administration and the IRS have put out very clear guidelines as to how to determine if an F1 visa holder is exempt from Social Security and Medicare. If they are working 40 hours a week, they are considered career employees and not students. In order to be a student employee, you cannot work 40 hours a week. If you are entitled to benefits, insurance, retirement, holidays, sick leave, annual leave, any of those would indicate that you are a career employee and not working in a student capacity. So, because most of our employees, if not all of our employees, qualify for those benefits, they are automatically subject to Medicare and Social Security. And because they are earning wages in the state of New Mexico, the state of New Mexico does require withholdings for state taxes as well. If you look in job data, and that's the next slide, go ahead and pull up the next slide, please. So in job data, under modify a person, there's a tab, a regional tab, where agencies are inputting information for the I-9s. So if you're a United citizen, we'll see US passport and maybe driver's license. This one is one of the examples that we have of a non-resident alien that is in our system. You will see that they are Asian, and I believe this person is actually from China. But we have an effective date of 3/2/24, and they have passport in here as citizenship proof. So we will assume that this is the passport from their native country, and then they have a US visa. But you will notice that this eligibility to work is not checked, and nowhere do we have in here that they have actually proved to us that they have provided their eligibility to work. So when I get a notice from Social Security and I go in here and look, I have nothing in here that even tells me that these people should be working for us, because a passport from a country does not indicate that they are eligible to work. So instead of the passport, we should be requiring the work permit to be used as a proof of citizenship, and then the US visa, because a passport from Indonesia does not tell me that these people are eligible to work in the United States. All that's doing is proving who they are, but it is not proving their US citizenship or their ability to work in the US. And what the I-9 is the proof that we are verifying they are eligible to work in the US. So please keep that in mind when you're completing this information. Can we go back to the prior slide, please? So on a non-resident alien, the one I have seen most currently, it actually has a 1-year valid from date. So it had a 6/25/2024 to a 6/23/2025. If we have a valid from date, then we cannot have a hire date in job data that is prior to that unless we have a work authorization that covers that prior period. If the card expires, they cannot have work after the expiration date. It is up to the agencies to verify and keep track of their non-resident aliens' work authorization permits. We go ahead and advance to the next screen. I'm sorry. We are working on some ways and some functionalities in HCM to allow us to track this, which will be in the future. It's very early in the discussion, but we do need to start utilizing the appropriate information in the system so that central payroll can actually validate with taxing authorities when we receive questions on whether or not these have been done. When we do the TINs matching through the Social Security Administration, that is not an authorization to work. What the TINs matching is that we do with the Social Security Administration is verification that the Social Security number and the name that we have for an employee are matching. We're saying that, yes, this Social Security number was assigned to this name, but there is no indication on it as to whether or not that Social Security number is allowed to work in the US. So it's very different than going through the other database. I can't remember what it's called right now, but there is another database where you can verify eligibility to work. And the TINs matching is different than that. All the TINs matching is doing is ensuring that when we submit the information to the Social Security Administration, we are submitting the accurate information according to the Social Security number and name that they have on record. So please keep that in mind, and please make sure that we are following up with and identifying all of the appropriate information in the system as it relates to our employees. Thank you. Go ahead and move forward. All right. So as we get closer to the end of the year, you will start seeing Central Payroll reaching out to you for employees that have reached maximum contributions. There is a maximum contribution on Social Security contributions, and for 2025, it's 6.2% of $176,100 for a maximum contribution of $10,918.20. When the system reaches that maximum contribution level, it will automatically stop withholding Social Security. So we don't have to adjust a lot of Social Security because of maximum contribution, but we are getting auditors that are reaching out to us, asking us why contribution for Social Security has been stopped when it's not eligible to. And what those auditors are doing is they are comparing the Medicare wages to the Social Security wages and see that they are different and either don't have access to the full information or are not looking at where that employee is on their yearly contributions. So if an auditor reaches out to you and asks why the Social Security was stopped being withheld, my recommendation is to go to that pay stub on the one that is being questioned and look at the year-to-date amount for the maximum contribution to see if they have reached the maximum contribution rate. I should have given you the 2024 maximum contribution rate because that's the ones that they're questioning currently. I believe it was like 10,450. But for 2025, it will be 10,918.20. And this will be the same as when your employees come to ask you why we stopped withholding Social Security. If this number is their year-to-date number on their pay stub, then they have met their Social Security max contribution for the year, and that's withholding will stop until the new calendar year, and then it will start again. The one that we have more issues with is the Paramax contribution. And the Paramax contribution, unfortunately, the only way that we have of knowing when Paramax contributions have been reached is when we go in to report wages and Para tells us they will not accept those wages or those contributions because they have reached their maximum contribution level for the year. When we get that notice from Para, we send out an email to the agencies asking them to please turn off the Para deductions for the remainder of the year for that employee. We will also then have to refund to the employee any excess contributions. This time of year is generally when we start getting those notifications and we will start notifying them. There are generally two agencies that this impacts the most, and they're very aware when they get those, but as we get to higher pay bands and people start earning more money, there is the potential for it to be impacting more employees. So if you receive a notice from Central Payroll asking you to turn off their Para contributions, it is because they have reached the Para max. And then we will ask you again at the end for the January pay period to turn those contributions back on. So please be aware that you could potentially start getting notifications from Central Payroll to turn off Para contributions. Next slide, please.
Did have a question.
I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. What is the maximum Para contribution?
For this year, the maximum Para contribution is any wages in excess of $350,000. So because there are different levels or percentage rates at which different people contribute, it's not a maximum Para contribution per se. It's a maximum reported earnings of anything over $350,000. All right. So I believe, Alex, I'm going to turn it over to you at this point.
Yes, awesome. Any other questions on Para before we moved on? All right, I think that's it. Awesome. So want to go over a payroll pre-audit that should be done every pay period. So to ensure a successful payroll, agency should be running the necessary reports and queries at the end of payroll period and until payroll has processed. The agency should be auditing the data to ensure all employees have reported 80 payable hours or scheduled part-time hours. Managers, supervisors, and/or timekeepers have approved reported time by Friday, and appropriate deductions have been taken, and that all forms submitted to DFA Central Payroll have been processed. Central Payroll sends biweekly emails of the list of reports and queries that agencies should be running every pay period. Agencies are responsible for ensuring the employees are paid correctly and timely. Some reports and queries require specific system processes to have occurred to get the most accurate information. For example, time admin, time loaded, or loaded time calculated. These are the queries, and again, usually an email goes out at the end of a pay period, giving you the list of these queries. And it'll come from different people here at Central Payroll, depending on who's running the payroll processing here. But this is the list here, and we do offer a training to go over the all these queries and what you're looking for in the results of these queries. Some of them you will have results in them, and some of them should be coming out blank, and that's how you know that it's clear and everything has been done correctly. There are reports. These queries run through Query Viewer or Schedule Query. These reports, and we have the path here, are found in a different area. So under Time and Labor, and some of these reports, some under View Time. And then we have other reports under Payroll Processing. So a good list to have. And again, if you've gotten this email in the past, you can go ahead and save it and just go through it. You don't have to worry or wait until you get that email to get that list of queries. Payroll reconciliation. Reconciling payroll for pay period, reconciling cash and liability accounts from HCM to Fin. So this process is something that is recommended to run at the end of every pay period. And you can start this on the Wednesday of the pay week after most of the payroll processes have run. Central Payroll will not ask you to submit your reconciliation, but it is recommended and should be saved for auditing purposes in case your agency does get audited. You want to make sure you have that available. This form of reconciliation, there are many types of reconciliations that you can run. But again, this one is specifically for cash and liability accounts and from HCM to Fin. There are two parts to this reconciliation. So you would reconcile the HR account line detail, cash and liabilities, to the PR journal cash and liabilities. And the second part would be reconciling the PR journal cash and liabilities to the AP journal cash and liabilities. This process does require information that can be found from the HR account line detail data. The HR account line detail data is created through the payroll process and a process that we call PayGLO2A, which consists of account information such as gross pay, net pay, benefits, and taxes. And in order to extract the HR account line detail data, you run the following query, which is at NMS_PY_accounting_line_details. We do have, in case you've ran this and you're pretty familiar with doing this reconciliation, I believe it was earlier this year, the query that used to be used for this reconciliation has changed, and it is now this one here. We do have the posted procedure for this reconciliation on our website, and I do have it screenshot here of where it's found under resources, and it's named agency HCM-PR-AP reconciliation. So for those that have taken my training on this reconciliation process in the past, anything before 2025, you may want to download this latest one, because again, this has the latest procedures, processes, and the latest query that you would run. The way this procedure is written literally takes you step by step. So anyone who's new to Excel can actually follow it. It tells you exactly where to click, what to click. So you know, if you're like me and you're not an expert in Excel, you can easily follow it all. But we do offer training, so we're either Claudette or I can sit down, and we can do this training in person or via a video conference like Zoom or Teams, and walk you through this entire process and do that reconciliation. If you do want to request that training, you can submit the training request form, which is also found under resources on our webpage, and I didn't put a screenshot here. And you can email that to this email address, the cpbtrainers@dfa.nm.gov, and we can go ahead and get that scheduled. Any questions on the reconciliation? Okay. How to research errors? So errors on the accounting line details, time and labor task profile IDs is where the accounting information is stored and is the funding source tied to the employee's time reported in HCM. When payroll processes are run in HCM, it creates that NMS PY accounting line details data in HCM and is sent over to financials. The NMS PY accounting line details data is a result of all the payroll transactions processed in a pay period. It is the input file to generating the PR journals and financials, which then gets posted to general ledger. And again, this gives you a screenshot of what that query that you would also use for the reconciliation. And this is where you can find a lot of these errors that you would find in your reconciliation as well. Correcting journal errors. So Central Payroll will notify agencies by email of all payroll errors generated. Agencies will need to provide Central Payroll with the appropriate accounting information to correct the journal within 24 hours of notification. Additionally, the agency must correct the error in HCM prior to next payroll cycle. If the errors are created due to budget errors, the agency will need to have the budget corrected or reclassify the expenses to a holding account and then journal the expenses after the budget is posted. Most of the errors are caused by project costing associated with combo codes and task profiles. Agencies should provide Central Payroll with contact information for financial staff that are responsible for maintaining this information. Payroll journals are essential to the state financial accounting system, accurately reflecting payroll activity. Therefore, if an agency has the same errors for 2 pay periods, all agency stakeholders will be required to meet with DFA Financial Control Division and Central Payroll prior to the journal corrections being made the second time. So again, very important to be on top of this here. Excuse me, payroll journal correction. So a liability versus expense account. When correcting payroll journals, it is imperative to understand how the corrections will alter the posting into FIN. Budget is based on expenses, and a correction to an expense line item should not impact the liability account. Issues arise when expenses are moved from one funding source into a different funding source. Central Payroll will not split funding sources on accounts. If you are moving the expense to a different funding, it must be moved in whole and any allocation needed made through a journal entry after posting. Because all expense accounts create an offset of a liability, it is imperative that the liability is also changed. A liability can only be moved between funds if the entire liability is moved. One expense will have multiple liabilities associated with it. Our cash control team allocates cash based on liability payments. If you move a liability, it will impact the cash allocation posted after payroll. Negative cash balances are not allowed, and payroll journal adjustments may impact on cash. There is a new job aid that we will post. We're hoping to have it posted by early next week. That will help you find or figure out what the errors are. So you'll receive an email if there is an error in the payroll journal from Central Payroll. Again, this email can come from different people, different leaders here at Central Payroll. I have a screenshot here of an example one from Suzette. And it's a very basic one. It's saying, "Good morning, please send me the corrections to this PR journal." And she will list that PR journal. In this job aid, you will be able to, it gives you the navigation of where to go into the general ledger module and find what that error is. And it'll explain what is causing that error, as far as whether it's an invalid combo code, bud ref in class, or a variety of errors. The majority of the errors, especially if you, and this, a lot of this will get sent out to HR personnel, and they're the ones researching it. A lot of these errors do require help from your budgeting departments to get it fixed. So you would want to partner with them to find out how to fix this error and get that corrected. Once you have that information, you would respond back to this email to get that corrected. Leave balance discrepancies. So this is has been for the past couple months a major training that we've been doing. Probably the most requested training Claudette and I have gotten for the past few months. So an employee has a discrepancy in their sick or annual leave buckets. Most of these discrepancies are usually discovered by looking at an employee's leave comp time screen and team time, or on the TLV report when processing the terminal leave. So what I mean by that, you can see the screenshot here. This is from team time. If you click on the module where it says leave/comp time, you'll see their balances here. For the most part, these two numbers should be matching. Especially if this employee has already been terminated, is no longer working, and hasn't entered any time, then at that point these should match. If they don't, then that's where you find that discrepancy. So we've recommended, if you're processing terminal leave or about to process one, before you fill out everything, submit anything, go look at that employee's leave balances to see if these numbers match. If you've already ran the TLV report, you would see that discrepancy here as well. So if it's an active employee, these numbers may not match if the employee has time already entered. Say this employee was planning on taking a vacation the following pay period, so they preemptively put in their annual leave for that time. This balance would automatically show that difference, that removal. This balance does not update until payroll runs. So that's where that discrepancy might happen on an active employee. Again, only on an active employee. If this is no longer an active employee, they've been terminated, there should be no difference here. Now, of course, these balances need to be corrected, and you'll have a TLV rejected if you submit it and these balances are not matching. Now, one thing that we've seen a lot is we'll get hours adjustment forms submitted asking them to add the hours. So they'll see this, for example, they'll see that this employee has 3.62 down here, and they'll ask us to add the difference so that these numbers match, without actually doing any type of auditing or work to figure out what the correct balance should be. That is not the correct way of fixing this. You want to make sure that you do a research, and we'll go into that here on the next slide, before you submit any type of form or request, whether it's an hours adjustment or a timesheet adjustment, whatever you need to do to get that balance corrected. You need to make sure that you research it before you submit any of that paperwork. We cannot just add hours or remove hours, or even there's a request to sync the balances, where basically we're just going to sync them to where they match without adding anything extra or removing anything extra. but we will not accept those if you do not provide any of the paperwork that shows that you've done the research to find that correct balance. So you can't just ask us to fix the balance without doing that work here. So in order to get that, what you would want to do is an audit for either annual or sick leave, and you can do both. A leave audit must be conducted when a discrepancy is found in an employee's leave balances. This audit will help determine what the employee's correct balance should be. Once determined, you will submit your findings to central payroll in order to correct the balances in HCM. And again, there isn't one single way of requesting to correct. Some of this, depending on what the issues are and what you found, might require 4 different requests. It could be a removing of hours or a timesheet correction form, and then a possible syncing of balances, then a addition or an hours adjustment form to add or remove hours, and then finally the TLB. So again, it can be a lengthy process. The 2 queries that you would use when conducting a leave audit are these 2 that you see on screen, the NMS_TL_leave_accrual, and the NMS_TL_reported_time. And nearly there isn't a procedure out there because almost every audit that we've done, and we've done, easily over 20 trainings on doing a leave audit, and almost every single one is different. Some of them can take as quick as 5-10 minutes to process. We've done a couple that take a couple days to research and try to figure out what's going on. The longer the employee has worked for the state, if you have a career employee that's been with the state for over 20 years, I mean, that's how far back you'd have to go to research where that discrepancy might be. So we do also recommend that you go in there every once in a while, especially if you don't have a large agency where you can go through your employees and double check their balances. Because again, the longer it goes without being corrected, the more research you'll end up having to do if or when that employee leaves the state. So making sure you're on top of this beforehand is going to save a world of hurt in the long run. Please submit a request to schedule training with Central Payroll. We have been doing quite a few of these trainings, and we do offer these trainings quite frequently. So if you want to go through this training on how to actually run this process, definitely submit that request to me and Claudette at that email, and we'll get that scheduled for you. And that training we can do, again, either in person or via a video conference. I have a question. Is there a list of all the trainings offered by DFA? So there's certain trainings that Central Payroll offers, and then other trainings that other areas of DFA offers. Central Payroll, the trainings that Claudette and I offer are specifically focused on payroll processes and payroll forms. We do on the training request form, there is a small list of the most common trainings that we offer, and then there's a checkbox for an other. And you can definitely ask us if it's a training we provide. There is also a pretty fine line between trainings that are more HR related versus payroll. And if it is more HR, that would go more to either the share team or SPO, depending on what it is, and your agency, whether you fall under SPO, to get that type of training. But anything central related, Claudette and I are your people, are your team. We would definitely be able to help. And then, again, if you feel free to send us an email if you're not sure if it's a training that we can provide or not. Any other questions on the annual and sick leave audit? Awesome. The form submission system. So we're about to launch the admin for the form submission system, or FSS. Agencies will need to designate one person, and preferably their HR managers, to become their agency's administrator for FSS. An administrator access form will need to be submitted to Central Payroll via the FSS to be given this access. This form is already on our webpage, and I believe it is called the Form Submission System Administrator Access Form. And I do have a screenshot of what that top of that form looks like here. So this person, this admin will be responsible for granting and adding users from their agency to the FSS. So currently all requests for FSS has to be approved or is approved by either Claudette or I. It's not an automated system. We manually go in there and look at the requests that are coming in and approve it if necessary. We do have to go and research to make sure that they're the correct personnel, because again, since this is not a share module, it's a website where pretty much anyone can access it. We have had people requesting access that are no longer with the state. They used to work for the state, or they might use like a Gmail account or a Yahoo account to try to create an account. It does have to be a state email whenever you're requesting access. The way this is going to change now is that one person at the agency is going to be the one adding users to their agency for FSS access. This person will also maintain their user list, ensuring that all their users are current, and deactivate those that no longer need access. The admin will be responsible for maintaining their agency's requests and ensuring that they're updated as needed. So if you see that there is a request that was returned due to an error in the request, and it's been sitting there in return status, meaning it's pushed back to your agency and it's been there, a month or two, then that's where you need to act on that and get whoever submitted that to either cancel that request or fix whatever needs to be fixed and resubmit it. So this admin will be responsible for pretty much running the FSS for their agency. And of course, with any issues or any questions, they can still reach out to Claudette or I at Central Payroll, or even the developer via the email, the support email, the RT support email. And I'll have that in a slide further down. And we will offer training for those admins. You can request training if you want to know exactly what you're looking for as an admin when running that FSS. And again, this form is already live. Feel free to start requesting that access, and you'll submit that form via FSS as a other or one-off submission. Any questions on this here? Okay, no questions.
Alex,
Go ahead.
I do want to let everyone know that this is going to be very important. It's going to be essentially now up to the agencies to ensure that their staff has the ability to submit forms through FSS, and that they are removing people from FSS who have either transferred out of the agency, out of the position, or terminated with the state altogether. You have to remember that forms that are submitted through FSS do impact employees' pay, and it is important that only the people that need the access actually have it. And since we are not in the agencies, we do not know, the ins and outs of everything that the agencies are doing when they have turnover, when people are promoted or move to another areas. It really is difficult for us to manage this personnel. So we are pushing that responsibility down to the HR managers, and the HR managers would be where the responsibility is going to lie for maintaining those users. I know currently we tell you to reach out to Alex or to Claudette for assistance with your FSS access. That will change, where if an agency reaches out to us for FSS access, we will ask them to reach out to their agency administrator to get assistance with being granted this access. So it's just another precaution that we're taking, where Central Payroll could not provide access to somebody unintentionally and end up it causing issues because we're not in the agency and we don't know. Just like when somebody needs to immediately have their access blocked to HCM or to share, you would also know if these people need to immediately have their access blocked to FSS, whereas we are not in that role and would not have that information. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you. Had a question from Julie. If I am the current / only FSS user, do I need to submit this form? It would depend. If you have an HR manager supervisor who isn't in FSS, I would have them request access, and they would in turn need to become the admin for FSS. Even if they're not one submitting. So again, this HR manager doesn't have to be someone who's submitting forms into FSS. They're just the ones maintaining it. They don't need to be constantly going in there and going through every single submission and unless that's part of the role, and submission and ensuring that everything's getting through. But they're going to be the admins for it, making sure that users are current and active. Okay, any other questions on this? Awesome. Oops. So continuing on with the FSS, to help ensure the metrics being pulled into the reporting tools are as accurate as possible, it is essential that you keep your FSS requests up to date. As of last, I think it was Thursday or Wednesday, we had over 100 requests that are in the return status. Again, this return status means that it has gone from our hands, from Central Payroll hands, back to your agency for either correction or to be canceled. Some of these are, I believe, from January was the oldest one I've seen when we kicked off FSS. So we have some requests in FSS that are sitting in return status from back then, and we need to have those either fixed and resubmitted or just canceled. There is a button at the bottom of the request where it's really small, where it says cancel. On some of the earlier requests, specifically those probably in January and February when FSS was first launched, there was a glitch where it wasn't correctly canceling, and at that point you would need to submit a ticket to RT Solutions or RTS, which is the developer, and I do have that email address here on screen to have that manually removed from them. We also have been getting a lot of emails and calls about accounts getting locked out. As of right now, Central Payroll does not have the ability to unlock an account that has been locked due to too many failed login attempts or other password issues. And you would need to submit an email to that same email address, support@rtsolutions.com, to have it unlocked, or you can wait the allotted time that it tells you in that pop-up. Usually, I believe it's 30 minutes. So if it's not, something that you need done right away, then you can wait those 30 minutes until for you to attempt to log in again. If not, go ahead and submit that email to support@rtsolutions.com. We are hoping to have that changed in the future where we would be able to unlock accounts, but that's not out yet. But for now, just go ahead and submit that email to RT Solutions. Friendly reminder, when it comes to the FSS, please only upload the required documents that are asked for in the type of request that you're submitting. When you look at creating a new request on the type of form, anytime you change this and there's a drop down, it will auto-populate the documents list that are needed for that type of form. And one thing that we used to require with any type of request in the past, when you would email them to Central Payroll, were screenshots of different areas of HCM, whether it was in job data, or review paycheck, those are no longer needed. We're no longer requiring or asking for any type of screenshots from HCM for any type of request. So just focus on what's on the actual request list. So for example, here we have an additional pay and it's asking for 3 documents only: the additional pay request, the summary page, and the para R/RHC calculation form. This makes it a lot easier for Central Payroll to review requests by not having to scroll through all the attachments that are no longer needed. So in order to help quicken the process and get your request processed as soon as possible, the more accurate your request is, the better it is for everyone. So instead of, if we, I might have shown a screenshot of what it looks like when we get multiple pages, because we have a different screen where it shows a preview of all the forms, and having to go through all of them can be a little tedious to find the information that's actually needed. So again, just make sure that you're going off of whatever the list is here. And of course, if you have any questions or concerns regarding a submission, feel free to reach out to Claudette or I. We do have our open hours for our trainers. Every Wednesday, Claudette and I have a Teams meeting that we have open that anyone can join and ask questions regarding anything from central payroll forms or existing requests in FSS or FSS in general. The only thing that we ask is that you don't share any type of personal information from the employees. If it's a more specific question like that, we can always take it out of that Teams meeting and do a one-on-one to go over those questions. This 2-hour open meeting is again available to anyone from HR. We've had people in the past that'll come in and sit through those 2 hours to listen to other people ask questions just to get knowledge. It's a great way to share best practices with all your peers. And again, we've had people from budgeting teams, from HR teams asking different questions, and we've learned as well. Claudia and I have learned quite a bit from questions that you guys have asked, and sometimes we've had you guys answer each other's questions. Again, this is a great open forum for anyone to join to get more knowledge regarding central payroll processes. Did you want to add something, Audrey?
Not at this moment.
Okay, sorry. I saw you pop up on screen. That's why.
I just know where we're at in the slides.
Okay. And this slide here just gives you our resources. So my name is Alex Guzman. I'm the supervisor. We have Claudette Romero, part of our training team. We have our phone numbers here and our email addresses. And then we do have our team or the trainer's email address. This is what we prefer any emails or requesting training or questions that you may have to go to. Claudette and I are not the only ones that have access to this email. So in case one of us is off, someone will get to that email. Whether, even Audrey has access to it, just in case for some reason all of us are gone, she can see it and might respond, and it might just be where we'll get to you once Alex or Claudette are back, so we can get this training scheduled. But we definitely prefer that you email that cpbtrainers@dfa.nm.gov. We do have our central payroll webpage where you can find a lot of the resources. And then for those of you that don't know, we do have our YouTube page. This is for all DFA. It's not just Central Payroll. So there are a lot of different videos there, a lot of good information and resources that you can visit as well. Do see a question. What time are the Wednesday trainings? The Wednesday open hours are from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. So you don't have to come in exactly at 2. You can come in at any time between those hours. And again, if you want to go ahead and join us for the entire 2 hours, you can, but it's every Wednesday from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Another question. I am fairly new to my role. I have had to submit form through the FSS system, and many times forms have been returned due to missing information. Do you all have the instruction sheets to the form? Instruction sheets on how to complete the forms. For some of them, for many of those forms, there are very basic instructions written on the forms themselves. A lot of them do not have any instructions. And again, for that, I do recommend reaching out to Claudette or I for that training so we can go over a specific form. And the thing when it comes to a lot of these forms is there are so many different rules and processes and policies depending on your agency, and depending on the situation of that form that you're processing. So that's why it's been hard to try to get a lot of the um, procedures written down for some of these forms. Some of them, like I said, do have the instructions on there, but again, it's very basic instructions on how to fill them out. For more detailed, again, please get with Claudette or I, and we can provide that training for you. Okay, I have the screenshot here. And again, I will share this and send this entire slide deck, the PowerPoint presentation to everyone that joined the meeting today. So you have that available as well. And this meeting has been recorded. Any other questions? Awesome. That is it for our presentation. Thank you everyone for joining us. I don't know if Audrey or Mark have anything else to say before we finish off.
I do. I want to thank everybody for coming to our quarterly meetings. I think this is our third one, and these have proven to be very successful. The collaborative effort between Central Payroll and the Share team, we hope is informative. Everybody gets the information that they need in one shot. We do try to keep you up to date on everything that is going on to make sure that, we are meeting your needs. If there is something you needing that we are not addressing or you're having issues with, please reach out to us. Alex and Claudette are very responsive and are willing to help you in any way they possibly can to meet your training needs. Your payroll admins are there to assist you as well if you have any specific questions relating to their work that you need some assistance with. Myself, Suzette, Margaret, Hoel, all of the managers are willing to help you. So please reach out to us if you need us. I did want to let you know that Central Payroll will be redistributing some of the workload within Central Payroll for the next pay period. So we will be publishing a new list of who your payroll administrators are. Some agencies will be moved to different payroll admins, and it's being done simply to level the workload on my staff. We have noticed with FSS helping us do a lot of the tracking and keeping metrics where the workload is a little uneven. And so in order to even out the workload among the central payroll staff, we will be making some adjustments to agencies and who the payroll administrator is for those agencies. So we will publish that list. I believe it is out on the CPB website, and we will update that list. It will be in effect for next payroll. So if you find yourself being contacted by a payroll administrator that you are not accustomed to dealing with, know that they were probably assigned to your agency in this change. Additionally, please look for an additional training that we hope to send out probably near the end of September, the beginning of October. Central Payroll is looking at allowing our off-cycle manual warrants to go through direct deposit. So we are working on that process. We do hope to have the rules surrounding that finalized and all of the procedures in place for a go live of October 15th. But we will be doing a training on all of the rules, regulations, and the impact it's going to have on the agencies at the end of September, probably beginning of October. So please look out for that. That will be coming soon. As you can tell, we are working, trying to make things better, not just for the central payroll team, but for the agencies as well. We value any input you may have, any thoughts or directions that you can guide us to that you think might be helpful. We are always willing to listen. So thank you all for attending. We appreciate it. And we are going to give you back a little bit of time, unless Mark would like to add anything. I'm not certain if he's still on.
No, I'm here, Audrey. Nothing to add. Thank you all. Great job today. Thanks to everyone for joining. Have a good 3-day weekend. Hopefully everybody gets some rest. Our staff and agency staff. It's been a busy fiscal year beginning, so hopefully everyone has a opportunity to take a couple days off and relax. But no, that's all I have. Thank you all. I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording now, and everybody have a good weekend.
Thank you,
Have a
everyone.
great weekend.
Thank you, everyone.